If you sat down at a dinner party tonight and told the person next to you that you had £100,000 to invest and you were putting it all into the stock market instead of buying a property, they would probably look at you like you had lost your mind. In the UK, we have a collective reflex. If you have money, you buy bricks and mortar. It's become more than just a financial decision. It's a cultural rule. We don't even feel like we have to explain it anymore. Property feels safe because it's solid. You can paint the walls, you can stand in the garden, and you can see it with your own eyes. Shares, on the other hand, they feel like a gamble. They feel like something for the city boys or people who like staring at glowing lines on a computer screen. But have you ever stopped to ask where that instinct actually comes from? Because it's not necessarily coming from a spreadsheet. It's coming from our history. For centuries in Britain, land was everything. If you owned land, you had status and you had power. We have moved away from the era of lords, but that landowner DNA is still in us. Then in the 1980s, things changed. Millions of people were encouraged to buy their council houses. Credit became easier to get, and suddenly ordinary people found themselves sitting on assets that were doubling in value almost every few years. That generation didn't feel like investors. They felt like property had rewarded them just for existing. And they passed that story down to us. Buy a house, it always goes up. You can't go wrong with bricks. But here is the uncomfortable truth. At some point over the last few decades, we stopped analyzing property and started almost worshipping it. We stopped separating the idea of a home from the idea of an investment. And when you treat those two things as the same, you can end up making some very expensive mistakes. The first big mistake is ignoring what I call the frozen money problem. Imagine two people. One has 300k in a 3-bedroom terrace house. The other has 300k in a global index fund, for instance. Both of them suddenly face a life-changing event, maybe a medical bill, a career change, or a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and they need 30k cash fast. The person with shares clicks a few buttons, they sell 10% of their portfolio, and the cash is usually in their bank account within a few days. They stay in their house, they keep the rest of the investment, and life moves on. The property owner, on the other hand, they are stuck. You can't sell the kitchen, you can't liquidate the whole way. To get that 30k, you have to sell the whole house. That means finding a buyer, hiring a solicitor, dealing with the estate agents, and waiting sometimes for months or even years. We feel wealthy when our house price goes up. But if you can't actually access that wealth when you need it the most, how wealthy are you really? Property is an illiquid asset. It's wealth locked in a box, in my view. It looks great on paper, but it doesn't give you the flexibility in the real world. Now let's look at the actual maths, because this is where the bricks and mortar argument actually starts to fall apart. Imagine it's 20 years ago. Two people both have 50k to invest. Sarah decides to do the sensible British thing. She buys a buy-to-let property for 200k. She uses her 50k as a 25% deposit and takes out a mortgage for the rest. Tom, on the other hand, decides to do something that makes his friends nervous. He takes his 50k and puts it into a boring, low-cost global index fund, basically a slice of the 3,000 largest companies in the world. And he forgets it exists. Fast forward 20 years to today, Sarah's house has done well. It's followed the UK average and doubled in value. It's now worth 400k. Sarah is thrilled. She is sitting on 250k of equity after the mortgage. She tells everyone she made 200k, but did she? First, Sarah had to pay to get in. 20 years ago, stamp duties, solicitors and surveys cost her thousands before she even got the keys. Then there's the maintenance cost. Over 20 years, Sarah replaced the boiler, fixed a damp issue and replaced the carpets. Even if she was lucky, she spent on average of £1,500 a year on repairs and insurance. That's another 30k gone. Then there are void periods when the house sat empty and the fees she paid a letting agent to manage it. When Sarah goes to sell the house today, she pays an estate agent and a solicitor again. And because it wasn't her main home, she is hit with capital gains tax. After all is said and done, her actual take-home profit isn't 200k. It's likely closer to 120k. Now let's look at Tom. Tom didn't have a tenant. He didn't have a boiler. He didn't have to pay a penny in stamp duty or estate agent fees. He just left his 50k alone. The global stock market has historically returned about 7% to 10% a year on average over the long run. If we say he got 8%, his 50k, thanks to the power of compounding interest, would now be worth roughly 233k. And if Tom used a stocks and shares ISA for part of that money, a huge chunk of that profit is completely tax-free. He clicks a button, the money hits his bank account, and he's done. Tom has made more money than Sarah, but more importantly, he has more time. He didn't spend his weekends at B&Q or chasing tenants for rent. So why does property still feel like it wins? The answer is the leverage illusion. Almost nobody buys a house with cash. They use a mortgage. If you put down a 50k deposit on a 250k house and the house price goes up by 10%, you haven't just made 10%, you have made 25k on your 50k investment. That's a 50% return. It feels like magic, but it's the debt doing the work, not the house. Most people don't realize that you could technically use leverage to buy shares too. It's just not socially acceptable. We think borrowing to buy a house is sensible, but borrowing to buy a piece of world's best companies is gambling. But leverage is a double-edged sword. It amplifies your gains, but it also amplifies your risks. If house prices stall or if interest rates rise, that mortgage still has to be paid every single month. The bank doesn't really care how solid your bricks feel when the monthly payments start to hurt. The final thing to consider is concentration risk. If you own one rental property, your entire investment is tied in one street, in one town. If a big local employer closes down or the neighborhood changes, your investment is in trouble. When you own an index fund, you own a tiny slice of thousands of the most successful companies on earth. You own the companies that make your phone, the companies that grow your food, and the companies building the future of technology. You are diversified across the whole world. One of those feels safe because it's a house. The other feels risky because you can't see it. But in reality, being tied to one single building in one single postcode is often much riskier than owning a piece of the global economy. This isn't about saying you shouldn't buy a home. Having a place of your own provides security and peace of mind that you can't put a price on. But we need to stop pretending that a home and an investment are the same thing. A home is where you live, an investment is where you grow your freedom. And if you're looking for freedom, it might be time to stop looking at the garden and start looking at the numbers instead. The British obsession with property isn't a financial strategy, it's a habit. And as any investor will tell you, the most expensive path is the one everyone else is already walking. If this video has helped you better understand Brits' obsession with the property market and their avoidance of the global stock market, then please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. All the best.